If the last decade was sort of first book of our saga, then this moment in time is just the first chapter of that next book. And I say that because Gemini has so much potential for what it can do in the home.
Welcome to the Made by Google podcast, where we meet the people who work on the Google products you love. Here's your host, Rachid Finge.
It's not just a new chapter that started for Google Home, it's an entirely new book with more Gemini intelligence, brand new hardware, and also a brand new Google Home app. Let's dive straight in with the Senior Director of Product Management for the Home team, Anish Kattukaran.
This is the Made by Google podcast.
Anish, welcome back to the Made by Google podcast. You have some exciting things to share with us today. So I'm wondering, does it now feel to you like we're living in the future?
Oh, man. Hey, Rachid, good to see you. Glad to be back. And also, we're doing this on video now, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, this is certainly a major inflection point for us, and I think it's going to set us on the right course to go and live in that Jetsons future that I talked about with you last time. So yeah, I'm really excited. This is very much the Gemini era of the smart home kicking off.
That's right. So lots to share. New intelligence, you have a new Google Home app, there is subscription now, you have new hardware, and of course, viewers who are actually watching our podcast on YouTube will already see it behind you, Anish. We'll get to that. Where to start? Should we talk about intelligence first? Because that sort of caught my eye immediately, like, whoa, I have a smart home, but now it's actually going to get smart.
Yeah, I thought your setup was right? For us, this moment is not about a single feature or a single product. It's very much the sort of convergence of, probably a couple years of work. And it sort of manifests in sort of four major ways, like you mentioned, right? So we've got this all new intelligence for the home, Gemini for the home. Really excited about that. We have a beautifully new redesigned app that's faster, it's simpler, it's smoother. It's finally complete. It's got, all the devices from the Nest app, which people have been asking for a long time. It's finally there. We're excited. We're done. The third part is we have a new subscription service, which we're excited about, called Google Home Premium. This is a service for your entire home. We used to have something called Nest Aware. This replaces that. And then last but certainly not the least, we've got a whole portfolio of devices that we're excited to share today. So a lot happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's take them in order. So Gemini for the home. Of course, many people have been using Gemini on their phone or on their computers. Now it's coming to the home. So for those who haven't heard yet, where will Gemini pop up now and why should I care?
Gemini has been incredible, transformative on phones and computers. I'm sure it's, like many people, it's transformed certainly my day-to-day experience. It's everything from planning things for my kids to writing content to generating images. Most recently with things like Nano Banana, it's been pretty awesome. It's been so fun for us. We really wanted to take the best of what Gemini could do on things like phones and computers, and bring that to the home context, right? And the home is such a unique place in so many ways. It's not active, it's ambient. You don't really use your home in the sort of same way that you use your phone, right? It's not personal, it's communal, right? So it has to work for you, it has to work for your partner, your wife, your kids, grandparents, nannies, babysitters, gardeners, all the people that sort of move in and out of your home. So sort of fundamentally, we wanted to bring all the best of Gemini and make it and combine it with all the best things that sort of we know about what the home is, and sort of bring those together as sort of one thing. And that's what Gemini for the home is. So Gemini for home is not only going to upgrade all of your sort of speakers and smart displays in your home, but it's going to bring to life a lot of the other devices in your home. So things like your cameras and your doorbells. And it's also going to materially transform the places where you interact with a lot of those devices. So things like the Google Home app.
That was the first thing that struck me. Like, if you already have a Google Home or Google Nest device in your home, like a smart screen or a smart speaker, there's nothing new for me to buy to get Gemini in my home, right?
Yeah, we teased, you and I were talking about this, we teased with a little Easter egg, the new Google Home speaker, which we'll talk about in a bit, in a video that we released at Made by Google probably about 6 weeks ago. And it got a lot of excitement. But I think one of the key questions was, okay, as we bring Gemini for Home to users, is it going to mean you have to buy a new device? And this is something that we spent a lot of time, thinking about, but very little time making a decision on. For us, it was very, very clear. This next wave of AI is not about, just shipping new devices, which can be a prevalent sort of theme in this industry. For us, this new wave of AI was very much about, can you take the sort of broader ecosystem and sort of make it better? We've had, tens of millions of users that have been on this journey with us, in many cases going back a decade when sort of first, Google Home Speaker and Google Assistant initially released. And so it was very, very important for us that as we brought Gemini for Home out, that we could do that in a way that took all of our tens of millions of users along that journey with us. Now, in some ways, it was harder, but it was certainly in many ways it was the right thing and the only thing that we would consider doing. And so that's actually one of the most exciting parts about this is when we roll out Gemini for Home, it's going to start as an early access in October. We want to get it out there and get feedback and learn and make sure that it works for everybody. But one of the most exciting parts is we're going to bring Gemini for Home to essentially every speaker, every smart display, every camera, and every doorbell that we've shipped in the last decade. And so that's pretty cool, we think. And so we're really excited for people to start playing around with it, later this month.
So let's say I am a Google Assistant user right now, and I guess we'll talk about Google Assistant in a while. But what can Gemini do for me in the home that the Assistant cannot today?
Maybe before we even get to that, I think one of the important parts of this was we knew that first and foremost, almost as a baseline, people would expect that it could do all the things that the Assistant could do, right? And if you think about this sort of generation of AI, while the last generation of AI was certainly had its limitations to realize this vision of that futuristic home that we've talked about, one that's sort of more conversational and more helpful, while there were limitations in that generation of AI, this generation of AI with language models and the transformer architecture is far more powerful, right? But one of the things about that we know is that while it's incredible at creation, creating content, sort of having sort of endless opportunities to do things with it, one of the challenges has been, well, how do you do the predictable things, right? How do you make sure that 10 times out of 10, when you're trying to turn off your lights or open your garage door, that will actually happen? And so a big part of what we had to sort of spend time on was ensuring that we would re-architect Google Home where you could get sort of the benefits of both of these things. You get the benefits of language models and all the amazing progress that Gemini has made around creativity and conversationality, but at the same time, it had the predictability of, can I play the specific song that I want or turn off my lights or close my blinds? And so we had to really sort of work to bring both of those together. So to summarize, first and foremost, Gemini for Home will be able to do all of the things that your existing assistant can do today, right? So the big things that people do, they play media, right? Music, podcasts, videos. They do things like what we call internally household coordination, lists, timers, calendars, all the things that sort of make your life a little bit easier at home. And then smart home, right? Smart home devices, people control all of those. So we need to make sure that it did all of those really well. And it can. So as a starting point, it can do all of those things. But the sort of magic of Gemini is really, because Gemini is far more fluid, because it can understand better, because it's much more natural and conversational, not only can it do those basic things, but it kind of upgrades all of those things in a way that is far more sort of human. And so, I'll give you a couple examples of what I mean. Today, when I talk about playing music, I describe this as we kind of have this search bar problem, which is if I know exactly the song that I want, or exactly the artist that I want, or the exact playlist, fantastic. I say Google, and it does it for me, right? And that still works, which I'm really excited about. But what Gemini is going to do is make it work in a way that kind of works more like human memory. So my example here is, my kids always asking me to play some specific song from some show that they're watching that I might not even know about. So my daughter came up to me yesterday and she's like, "Hey, Papa, can you play the Sprinkle song?" And I was like, I don't even know what that means, right? But now I can say stuff like, Google, play the song from the show with Gabby and some dollhouse and that has the word sprinkle in it, and bam, I get the song. And so suddenly you sort of get this upgraded discovery and sort of experience for media that works far more like human memory does. And we think that's a big sort of upgrade, right? So you can do the basics, but suddenly you can do all those basics in a way that is just works like humans think.
So is it like play all the greatest hits from the summer of 2015? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the key thing here is about understanding, because Gemini can understand your context and sort of like what you mean, right? If you think about simple things that you do in your home, right? Today, you set a timer, right? Of course, Gemini will be able to help you set a timer. But think about what you do in order to set the timer. Usually, when I'm in the kitchen, I'm setting a timer because I'm cooking something. And so what I've typically done is if I'm, making a steak, I've usually already Googled, hey, I'm making a ribeye. It's half an inch thick. I'm cooking it at like 350 degrees. I've figured out how long the timer needs to be. And then I say, Google, set a timer for 6 minutes. Now, instead of that, I can actually just lead with the outcome that I care about to begin with, right? So I can just say, Google, set a timer for cooking steak. And then with a couple like back and forths with Gemini will clarify, okay, well, what kind of steak? How thick is it? How big is the portion size? That kind of stuff. And bam, it'll just set the timer for me. So it's a subtle thing, but it's a big one because it finally sort of delivers on the idea that this is a more conversational partner for you at home.
So Gemini is going to be much more conversational. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So when you say Google, that's going to now invoke Gemini, and Gemini is going to be just generally far more natural conversational. There's maybe 3 quick things there. We're going to be rolling out 10 new voices that just sound far more fluid, expressive, more natural, like better pacing, better intonation. So that's exciting. Gemini will also have this, because of it has deeper understanding. It has what we call conversational context. So as you're talking to Gemini, you don't have to keep repeating what you were talking about. It just sort of remembers that as it goes through, right? So you could say, Google, I'm trying to fix this very specific brand of dishwasher. And it's going to give you some steps. And then you could say, Google again, okay, I did the first few. Tell me about the next one. You don't have to repeat that you were fixing the dishwasher before, right? It knows because it's passing that context through. It's a much more fluid conversation. And so that experience is going to be great. So that's Gemini. So you say, Google, you get Gemini. But I think the really exciting part is going to be, and I think of this as the future, which is Gemini Live. And that I think is going to transform the experience even more.
And Gemini Live coming also to all the speakers?
So Gemini Live is a separate mode. So when you say, Google, let's chat, what that's going to do is that's going to create this sort of like open conversation now. Suddenly the hot word is gone. You can pause, you can interrupt, you can add more context into it. And so it's a much more fluid back and forth. And so that's going to be really, really powerful, right? So you can say things like, Google, I've got eggs and bread and, some feta. What can I make? And then as it's responding, you might realize, oh, you know what? I forgot to mention I wanted to be keto. So you can say, oh, actually, you know what? Hold on. Can you make sure it's keto friendly? Or you can say, oh, you know what? My 4-year-old hates spinach. Just make sure that what you're making is going to hide the spinach somehow. So it's very much more like fluid in the way that, if my wife and I were sitting around the kitchen and we were talking, it's kind of how we would talk. And suddenly you're getting that fluidity there as well. Now, you said, is it coming everywhere? Gemini Live does have hardware constraints and limitations, so it does require, newer hardware. So Gemini Live will be coming to our 2 most recent speakers and our 2 most recent smart displays as well. So we're definitely trying to bring it to as many devices as possible, but there are some limitations, microphone placement, processing, things like that.
So Gemini's multimodal, which is great when you want something that I think we call camera intelligence, right? Because I can now also ask questions. I was really excited to learn about this. I can ask questions about what my camera saw, right? Do you have some examples of what I might be able to do?
Yeah. When we talk about Gemini for Home, we've mostly talked about probably one of the most fundamental ways that you would interact with Gemini via your voice. And it's certainly upgrading the speakers and displays. I mentioned earlier, it is upgrading your cameras and your doorbells, right? And so because Gemini, like you mentioned, is multimodal, now with our cameras and doorbells, we can do what we call semantic scene understanding, right? So before, if you think about how cameras have evolved over the last few years, or more than a few years, we went from sort of security cameras initially that could live stream, and that was pretty profound. From there, we sort of went when the first Nest cameras and doorbells came out, and sort of all the competitors in that space. We went to smart cameras, and smart cameras suddenly could do a bunch of different things. They could record, they could do things like alerts, like package alerts, motion alerts, people alerts, and that was pretty profound at the time. Now, I think if you fast forward a few years to today, if you've got one of them, I think the reality is probably the same for many of us, which is you kind of have this constant low context stream of alerts that you get on your phone, right? Or as you scroll through your event history, which is, person detected as you're scrolling, right? Person detected, promotion detected, package detected. And if you think about it, what it does is it actually kind of pushes the cognitive load on a user and the burden on a user to figure out, okay, what actually matters, what doesn't, right? Where's the signal and the noise? And I think as we transform, this next leap is going to be from smart cameras to what we call AI cameras. And the big change there is you're going to go from recording and alerting, which is what this generation of cameras in the industry does, to this idea of like interpreting and understanding. And once you have that understanding, suddenly, what Gemini is doing is it's not saying object detected anymore. It's saying USPS, US Postal Service delivery person walked up your, porch and dropped a package off and is now walking away. So suddenly you go from object detection and person detection to this semantic scene understanding. And that is a game changer because it sort of unlocks all the other things you can do with a camera experience on top of that.
And that probably also means I can ask questions about things that I'm maybe not exactly looking at right now, but maybe something that happened over the past few days. I'm wondering wonder what happened there.
I mentioned it unlocks everything you can do with cameras. And I don't mean that in a sort of hyperbolic way, right? I mean that in the sense that now that the camera can understand what it is seeing, it can do a few different things, right? So you could start off by just saying, hey, those notifications I mentioned earlier, well, they go from people detected and object detected to actually describing what it is seeing in the notification, right? So say you got home and you notice, okay, well, your coffee table is completely a mess and there's a glass broken. And you're like, wait, what just happened? And if you pull up your notifications, you might have a notification that says, hey, the dog jumped on the coffee table. Well, suddenly you've gone from a whole bunch of detective work, which you would have had to done in the past, to, okay, well, that was probably it, right? Pretty obvious. So one sort of key way is that with that understanding and that context, suddenly in your events and your notifications, it makes it easier to parse what happened. Now, it doesn't solve the I have too many notifications problem, right? It just means that they're more valuable. Okay, cool. That's awesome. But we are rolling out two other things that I think get at what you were asking. So one thing that we call the home brief, which is pretty exciting. So, if you don't want to consume all of those notifications, say you've been in a podcast recording like I am right now, or away at work, or you were sleeping all night, and you want to sort of quickly catch up on what happened, well, the home brief is a quick summary where Gemini for Home is sort of going through hours, if not days, of your footage and picking out the most important things for you to know about. And it sort of summarizes it for you in text that you can just read at a quick glance. And that's pretty cool. I think that's really, really powerful, right? It's going to help you understand what happens and get back to your life and doing what you care about. But your question started off with, well, what if you're looking for something specific? What if you're looking for, when did the gardener come last week? Or, did my kids leave their bikes on the driveway? For me, I feel like my driveway is always blocked with something. It's either my neighbor's car blocking my driveway, or the kids have left it there. Now, today for me, every day when I'm getting ready in the morning, I'm putting my shoes on, I can just say, Google, did the kids leave bikes in the driveway? And I get an answer, right? And so that's the solving the needle in a haystack problem, which is what I call it. And we think it's pretty powerful. When I came back from New York this weekend, I noticed our driveway was really stinking. Like it just smelled really, really bad. So one of the first things I did when I walked in was I said, Google, or you could do it in the app as well, was there a skunk in the driveway? And it turns out, a day before, there was a skunk at like 2 a.m. Now, I would have never found that, right? I would have had to scroll through hours of footage to get there. And so, we think this is going to be, Ask Home is going to be pretty incredible for stuff like this.
So you mentioned you're already using this. We, of course, have a whole community of what we call dog fooders at Google, right? Who get to try and the newest things we have and give feedback. Is there one sort of standout thing you remember from testing? Because, you come up with scenarios that you expect to work, but probably people figure out things that you didn't think about that are possible. Just wondering if there's something that sticks out of your memory, like, wow, I didn't know that's something you can do with it.
So many things. Maybe two examples that I'll call out. One was with my parents. So my parents noticed that something was going on in their backyard and they didn't know what. And I remember, I had them in the testing group as well. And, they asked, what happened in the backyard. And it turns out, and the camera spotted this at night. At night, there was sort of a family of raccoons nested in their backyard, like under their deck. And so they thought that it might be a problem, but they didn't know where. And so because of this, they were able to find out that they actually had this raccoon problem in their backyard, and they were actually able to find out that it was like a nest under their deck. So I thought that was a pretty cool experience. I remember, my mom sort of texting me about that. That was a cool moment. The other one, I mentioned Ask Home lets you search your camera history, which is really powerful. It does let you do a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So if you're in the Google Home app with Ask Home, you can do a bunch of different things. And I need to give you a little bit of context on the story first. So first off, we've got, I don't know, tens of millions of users in the Google Home app. Automations tends to still be this thing, for all of its power, is something that not a ton of people do, right? Because in a lot of ways, it's like you're programming your home.
Yeah, what is it? Just for people who even, there are people who can program it. There are also people who don't even know what it is in the first place.
Exactly, right? And yeah, you got to figure out conditions and Boolean logic and if this, then that statements. I give you all this context because people love it. The people who use it love it. They're enthusiasts. They spend a lot of time doing that. And I joke because, I lead this team here at Google, but my wife has never once set up an automation. Not once, right? If you go into our Google Home app, every single one in there was set up by me. But as we've been testing Ask Home internally, I had this like epic moment where I was about to leave on a trip for work. And then I saw something popped up, an automation that had popped up in my automation tab. And I was like, wait, where did this come from? And I did a little bit of digging. It turns out my wife had created her first ever automation. And it started with something like, she just said, make me feel safer. And she was implying like, while I'm traveling, we've got little kids and stuff like that. And I was able to like go to her and I asked her about it. And I saw this whole like back and forth dialogue that she'd had in the Home app. And she'd started off by saying, make me feel safer. And Ask Home and sort of responded and said, okay, well, we can do a few different things. What are you worried about? And, it was like, okay, well, let's make sure the locks are locked every night. And, if there's no one home, simulate the lights to mimic like someone's at home. But that was a cool story because, I've never had my wife make an automation, and that was a big change. And hopefully that means that a lot more people will do stuff like that. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, because crucially, she wasn't, I guess, not even trying to make an automation, right? But that turns out to be the solution that worked for her. And it's probably something like, we have automated curtains at home, but now I could say, can you just close the curtains every time, when the sun goes down, something like that. No programming required.
You don't have to do anything other than just ask for exactly what you want in natural language. And I think this is where I think Gemini for Home can have a pretty profound impact on the smart home. Like, we've all brought these smart home devices, the idea that they all work really well together and they'll make things smarter and a little bit easier. But that promise has sort of been one that we missed, right, as an industry. But now I think with the idea of just ask for what you want, and Gemini can sort of abstract out all of the complexity there and just help you get things done, I think that could be really, really powerful. So that's going to be a big force to sort of commoditize and just generally make accessible all of this power that has been reserved for a few.
So let's talk about the updated Google Home app. It's a reset almost, like, so many things you've done now. Also bringing in everything that the former Nest app could do. You say it's also a lot faster. What am I missing here, and how did you achieve it?
I think of this moment for the Home app as like a major step on a journey that we've been on. There's a few different things that we're excited about for October, which is, we've heard a ton of feedback. I read all of the feedback that our users send us, whether it's on our community, I read everything on Reddit, on Twitter, etc. Everything that people submit to us. So we're very cognizant. We are reading and consuming all of that. And there's a couple of different things. We are very aware of the fact that the Home app hasn't been the app that it needed to be. And so, the first part of that is just the quality and the performance of it. It's something that we've been very, very focused on. And hopefully folks are starting to already see it. There've been a bunch of improvements over the last, 6 to 9 months. We've done something like 100, feature and performance improvements in just the last 6 to 9 months. So in general, the app is now loading faster. It's more reliable. It's, crashing less. The camera experience, I know users are seeing this and telling us this now. The camera experience is a lot more fluid, a lot faster, better frame rates, a whole bunch of great progress. But performance is a journey. It's not like a destination. It's not like it will magically be, okay, today's the day and it's now everything is perfect, right? We've been on that journey. We think the October release is going to be a much improved release, and then it's going to keep getting better. Once we sort of rebuilt the foundation of the app, that's what's been the thing that's been able to let us iterate so much faster, right? So I mentioned all those improvements. That's our new normal now, right? So you should expect to see, updates every couple of weeks, every month. So that was one big part of this app release is, we're very focused on quality and performance. The other big one is on, I remember we talked about this when I was last on here, right? This multi-year journey that we've been on to bring Nest devices over. Before I say a lot of words, we're done. I think that's the biggest thing that most people are excited to hear about. We are finally done. I'm sorry it took us a while. There's a bunch of good reasons for why it did. Technically pretty complex, but we're done. And so maybe that's the most important thing for people to take away. So every Nest thermostat that we built since 2015, every Nest camera and doorbell that's in the Nest app, you can migrate over to the Home app. Your Nest Protects, your Nest Yale Lock, all of them now. So if you're a user of ours and you want a single app experience, no more app switching. You can do it now, right? So the Home app is now the one place for you. Of course, we're not getting rid of the Nest app or anything like that just yet, but the Home app is your single destination. So for us, you asked about the Home app, before I talk about any of the new stuff, the redesigns, for us, those were the two things that really had to act as the pillar, right? The app had to be faster, it had to be more reliable, and it had to be finally complete. Once we did those things, then we could talk about, at least internally, then we could talk about, okay, what else can we do and how can we innovate and, add new features. So that was the baseline, if you will.
So let's talk about the new stuff in a minute, but still people would ask Anish, what took you so long? That's not only to the Nest app, but, some of the other things you mentioned. So is it much more complicated than people thought, or is there any other reason why we finally managed to crack it now in 2025?
I've got this question a lot, right? I think certainly in the comments on even some of the last podcasts we've done, on AMAs and stuff like that we've done on Reddit. I think a lot of people have just assumed, okay, cool, just copy paste the devices from this app and move it over to this app.
That's not how it works.
Man, I really wish if it had, things would have been a lot easier. The reality is a couple different things. First off, the Nest app is a very different app. It's built for a handful of devices only. It's very focused. It was built for a few Nest only cameras, a few Nest thermostats, a lock, and the Nest Protects. That was it. And there's a beauty in that simplicity, but the Home app is incredibly powerful in that the Home app is built to be your entire smart homes app, right? It's not just our devices that we make, but it's 800 million devices from over thousands of other OEMs all in sort of one place. And so just in its purpose and its utility, it's just fundamentally different. So that's one interesting thought. But the thing that made it complex to move over is that the devices you're talking about in the Nest app, some of them are, over a decade old. They were written in code in some ways that like code that has been deprecated. They've been built onto, I'm going to get nerdy and technical here for a second, but, different devices, built onto different backends and services that, some that don't exist anymore, some that are being deprecated. So anyway, users don't care and they shouldn't ever need to care. But the complexity was, we had to migrate not just the devices and what you see in the app in what we call the front end, but they were, many multiple backends had to be sort of migrated over onto our new technology stack that supports our latest devices. So it's a lot of complex backend and front end migrations needing to happen simultaneously, thousands of lines of code written to be able to do that. But again, all of that complexity, this is not an excuse. It's just, that's the stuff we had to do. We were always going to do it. And now we're done. Now the goal is just, okay, cool. Like just keep making the home app better.
Exactly. So new baseline now. And then what is new in terms of features with this new version of the Google Home app?
With that new baseline, I think we said to ourselves, okay, well, how can you actually simplify the experience? So a big part of this 4.0 Google Home app release, which starts, by the way, on October 1st, rolling out globally. A big part of that was just redesigning it for simplicity. So the first thing you'll notice when you go into the app, it's much simpler. There's just 3 tabs on the bottom. There's the Home tab, Activity tab, and the Automation tab. At the top, you'll notice there's a new header navigation up on the top. So you'll see this persistent entry point for what I mentioned earlier, Ask Home. Whatever tab you're on, if you want to know something, you can sort of get to Ask Home really, really quickly. So that's structurally the app is different with those things. There's a bunch of things in here, right? We probably don't have time to go into all of that, but a couple of things. When you're on the Home tab, we did spend a lot of time thinking about how we'll make it easier to use with just one hand. So we've introduced this idea of gestures. So when you're on the Home tab, you can just swipe with your thumb very easily to swipe from your favorites to all of your devices to all of the dashboards that you have for cameras or climate, Wi-Fi, and energy and stuff like that. So we think that's really cool. We spent a lot of time, by the way, on the camera experience. So cameras is probably the other area we're investing really, really deeply on. So one of the things that Nest app users loved in the Nest app was this thing that we called Scrubby. So you could just skim your finger and you'll see the video, move really, really quickly as you're doing.
That was beautiful. Yeah.
So we brought that over to the Home app. Very excited about that. We brought gestures into the camera experience as well. So you can sort of double tap on the camera viewer to rewind or fast forward. You can swipe between your timeline view and your events view. And there's so much stuff in here. We have zoomed in event preview. So when an event actually happens, right, that person detected or the motion and package stuff, rather than just showing you a zoomed out view of everything the camera sees, the camera's going to sort of zoom into exactly what triggered that motion. So that's really cool. The Activity tab got a big update. It used to be just the activity of some of our first-party Nest devices. Now it's the activity of all of your devices in Google Home, right? So whether we make it or it's from a partner, it's the sort of canonical place for all of the history of your home. And that's, by the way, that's the tab where the home brief sits on top of it, right? So the home brief is at the top of the new Activity tab, and then you get this full history of your entire home below it. So we think that's going to be really, really valuable. And then let's see, what else? So much goodness in here. Automations. We talked about automation. We talked about creating automations with Ask Home, but we revamped the Automation tab as well. So maybe 2 things here. So the Automation tab used to be just this list of all of your automations. One really subtle thing that I'm really excited about is now when you open the Automation tab, right at the top of it, you're going to just see this carousel of all of the things that are about to happen in your home. And so even my wife and I, we always joke, I create all the automations. Stuff is just always happening in the home and she never knows what. And she's like, Anish, stop. Like, I don't know what's going on. So now she can just open the Automation tab at any point and she'll see, oh, you know what? The blinds are about to close in like 30 minutes or, the lights work to do something. And so we think that's awesome. Like it's a subtle thing, but it's a really powerful thing for all of the members in the home. Remember, the home is this communal environment, right? So a big part of this is how do you make sure everybody knows what's happening? So that's just an example of some of the the new things. We also rebuilt the automation editor, so to make it a lot more powerful. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff in there. So I'm excited for people to jump in, start playing around with it, and tell us what they like and what they don't, and give us feedback. We're listening.
So we also quickly touched on what we call Google Home Premium. You also mentioned Nest Aware. So what's going on there? What is the new deal, and what do I need it for?
We've had Nest Aware for some time. It's an awesome camera subscription service. It is going to be replaced by Google Home Premium. So Google Home Premium is meant to be a subscription for your entire home. So not just for cameras, but for sort of all the devices in your home. I think there's a couple of things that are interesting here. The 2 tiers within the service are not changing, right? So we still have everything that was in the previous Nest Aware tiers remain in there. The price remains the same as what was updated to earlier in the year. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a lot of this new Gemini for Home value into those respective tiers. And so, all of the advanced Gemini for Home capabilities will come to Home Premium Standard and Home Premium Advanced. So that's pretty exciting. Maybe the other thing that a lot of people are really excited about, and I'm very excited to share this, if you are a Google One subscriber, right? If you're one of the many millions of them, and if you have Google AI Pro or Google AI Ultra, well, Home Premium is added in there at no additional cost, right? So it's for free. And so we're very excited to get the power of Gemini for Home to all of our, Google AI subscribers across the world. So that's a pretty exciting rollout. We're pretty excited about that.
So are you saying if I have Google One or Google AI Pro or Ultra right now and Nest Aware, you're basically just dropping one of my subscriptions, but I keep the same features?
Yeah. If you have Google AI Pro or Google AI Ultra, Google Home Premium is included in there for free. And so you no longer need a separate subscription service.
That seems like great news. And how would you distinguish the 2 tiers you mentioned? Is there like a key difference between the two that I should know about?
Yeah. And maybe one thing to clarify, right? Even so, out of the box, as we talk about Gemini for Home, as we upgrade users in their speakers and their smart displays, when they say Google, they will get that upgraded Gemini experience for free, right? So everything they could do with their existing Google Assistant, they'll be able to do that and more and better with Gemini and all the understanding things like conversational context. And then much like Gemini and other places on phones, we have a pay tier as well. And so there's a bunch of different things there. So for Home Premium Standard, you'll get things like Gemini Live. You'll get the ability to do a variety of different things with Ask Home that I mentioned, things like that natural language, automation creation. And then, of course, everything that was in Nest Aware previously, you also get in there. And then when you go to Home Premium Advanced, you get a lot of the other, more advanced capabilities, things like Home Brief, which I mentioned, right? Which is summarizing hours of, 24 hours of your video footage to give you that quick summary of what's happening with your cameras. So that's in there. Ask Home, the ability to find specific things from the history of your home. That's in the advanced tier. So there's a lot of really, really cool stuff in both of the respective tiers. And so, checking out the blog or going to the website will give you the full detailed list of that stuff.
We're getting close to the new hardware that's also behind you for people who already noticed, so we'll get to that. But I just wanted to briefly circle back to the Google Assistant, Anish. Some people are wondering, what happened maybe the last year? They probably didn't have the experience that they were expecting. And apart from that, I'm just also wondering, what is your feeling, about Google Assistant? Because, we can talk about, how maybe, what happened over the last year, but if you zoom out, it's still a pretty cool technology that, brought us pretty far in a decade's time or so.
Yeah, I mean, Google Assistant has had a pretty transformative, I think, impact on our users over the last 10 years. There's no sort of selling short what an incredible experience. I remember I didn't work on this team, so no bias here at the time, but I remember buying, going into a store and buying my first Google Home speaker and talking to it. And that was, very much a futuristic experience. And, for all of the vision that we had for the home, of making it this sort of conversational, assistive experience that could be proactive and actually help you get things done, it did a lot of really, really amazing stuff, right? but it had limitations. And I think the technology, the sort of AI and ML of that last generation had certain limitations that meant that there was a little bit of a gap between the vision that we had and the sort of realities that were real there. But you're right, like it has been a pretty profound technology and product over the last decade. Now, that being said, as you think about the sort of future, we had the advent of the transformer and the LLMs, and it was very, very clear early on that we now have a much more powerful AI that could actually help us, better realize that vision that we had painted. And so yeah, it's been interesting to be here where you could sort of see where the old technology is, understand where the new technology could get us, but then, have empathy for, what a lot of our users were feeling over the last year, which is that unfortunately it hasn't been a great experience. I was on Twitter a couple months ago, maybe 2 months ago, and just sort of sharing that, we understood that things weren't great and it wasn't working well. And I think the reality was we took a hard look at what we could do and realized pretty quickly that the old technology was only going to get us so far. And so we had to make a hard call on how we would proceed into the future. And so we said, okay, you know what? Rather than attempt to put a bunch of Band-Aids in different places to try and ensure that the current thing is sort of hobbling along, we needed to sort of take a more dramatic approach here, which, by the way, is a big part of why we are bringing Gemini for Junta to all of our older devices, right? So it's not like we're saying we're leaving those users and those devices behind, but we had to look at what was possible, and we said, okay, it's a tough decision, but rather than trying to Band-Aid the older thing, let's look at how we can actually bring Gemini to all of those devices instead, and make that the more reliable foundation to sort of build out for the future. And so that's what we spent a lot of time on. And I realize, that's been something that has been frustrating for users who have not experienced that yet. That's why I'm so excited that we're finally able to start rolling out early access later this month. And we're going to learn, right? We're going to get this out. We're going to roll it out to our existing users. We'll get feedback. We'll iterate. We'll make it better, so that it's an awesome, reliable experience. But it's been tough. But I think we're sort of like turning the corner now, and I'm excited to get this in the hands of our users.
Hopefully well worth the wait then. So people will be trying it by now once this is out. So we'll hear from them. Anish, it's time to talk about hardware. It's been looking at us on the shelves behind you. Why don't we start with the speakers? How about that? A lot of chatter about it, and back in August, they saw apparently Lando Norris has one already. It is home. It's the new Google Home speaker. I guess we just call it Google Home speaker now, right? Why isn't it a Nest speaker? Wasn't that like the newer name?
You went there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, we tried to simplify the brands. You're talking about Google Nest and Google Home, and what we just found was users just had a really fixed mental model. When they thought of Google Nest, they thought of cameras and thermostats, and when they thought of speakers and displays, they thought Google Home. And so it's as simple as that, right? There's nothing more complicated than we said, listen, don't fight it. That's what users are telling us. And so we're just sort of leaning into the brands that people know and love.
So, of course, we're bringing Gemini to the existing speakers. So you might wonder, why do we need a new one then?
It's been some time since we've rolled out a new speaker. And I think for us, it was really important to clarify, right? Our approach to hardware and devices is that we are really excited to still continue to build helpful, thoughtful devices for the home. And as we think about our strategy for where we build devices, there's sort of two major parts to it, right? So one part of it is we want to continue to build really sort of flagship devices in certain categories that will sort of push the needle on innovation, that will allow us to sort of showcase, what's possible that's optimized for Gemini. So that's a big part of our strategy. That's one sort of big part of it. And then the other big part of it is, we also know that users love and appreciate choice, and that's choice of form factors, choice of brands, choice of price points. And so it was really important for us to ensure that we weren't sort of constraining Gemini for Home to any one OEM, any one price point, any one sort of form factor. So So that, there's sort of two major parts to our strategy. And so that's why, so the Google Home speaker for us is very much about, we're going to take Gemini for Home and roll it out to all of our existing users. But we also started to think about, okay, well, what can we do to sort of push the boundaries of what's possible? And so, the Google Home speaker is going to be a device that we build that is built from the ground up, optimized for Gemini, right? So it means we're doing a bunch of custom processing on the device to make sure it better hears conversations. It can do things like background noise suppression, echo cancellation, balances reverb. The microphones are placed for that far more fluid conversation you and I talked about with Gemini Live. You'll notice another big change of it is we've got this beautiful light ring that sits under the device now. What that does now is it sort of gives us this more expressive way to communicate what Gemini is doing, right? Is Gemini listening? Is it sort of processing? Is it reasoning? Is it, responding? Is it in Gemini Live mode? So for us, Gemini for Home is going to unlock capability everywhere. But what the Google Home speaker lets us to do is sort of push the boundaries of what's possible and sort of showcase, a lot of the new capabilities as we go out into the future.
So, Anish, why do I need to wait until spring 2026 to get one? I mean, it's quite some time off. There must be a good reason why you're waiting that long.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of what I mentioned earlier, which is there's a lot of intentionality to the strategy and timing, which was rather than us rolling out a new device first and taking Gemini for Home and putting it on the new device first for new users only, we said, listen, we're gonna take a slightly different approach. We're gonna first roll out Gemini for Home to our existing users and our existing devices. Let them try it. Let them share feedback. Give us time to sort of make it perfect for them before we roll out a sort of new flagship device. And so that's really the long and short of it was, our focus is really first on our existing users and existing devices, and then we'll get to the new device in the spring.
Tell me if I got this right. There's something great about the new Google Home speaker if I already have a Google TV streamer, right?
Yes. I think a lot of users are going to be saying, finally.
Exactly.
Yes. If you have the Google TV streamer that we rolled out last year, and then you get two of the Google Home speakers, you will be able to use them as cinema surround sound, right? So they'll work as the audio output for your TV. So that's pretty exciting.
All right, so moving on to cameras now, and we see quite a few behind you, including, by the way, a very beautiful red one that caught my eye immediately. It's just behind you, behind your shoulder. People can probably pick it out. What's new and great about the new cameras that we're offering?
Yeah, the cameras are actually a great example of that, our hardware strategy in play. I mentioned earlier, we've got sort of the two big parts of it. Yeah, this is our flagship cameras. We refreshed our entire wired portfolio. We think they're beautiful, as you point out. Listen, I'm biased, but easily the best designed cameras in the industry. We have some of the best industrial design and UX teams on the planet. But yeah, they're beautiful. The red that you mentioned, that's Barry. We've got that on the camera, which is somewhere there. The Google Home speaker also comes in Barry as well, along with Jade, which I think is right there above there. So really some beautiful colors in there. So the context on the cameras across the entire portfolio, pretty exciting. We've upgraded all of them to 2K HDR. So it's our highest resolution yet. We were very intentional. These cameras were built from the get-go to be the AI cameras that I mentioned earlier, right? So that they could power Gemini's semantic scene understanding, so they could be sort of smarter. So as we picked the sort of sensors to put in there, we're very intentional about those choices, right? So we wanted to make sure there was a sensor that could capture the right level of detail for Gemini's multimodal models to use. We also wanted to balance that with users wanting to be able to zoom in to the right level of detail for certain things. And you had to balance that against things like, upload bandwidth. Many people don't realize that your home internet has data caps. Most people don't hit them, but if you buy a bunch of really high resolution cameras and they're uploading 24 hours, well, you're going to learn. I actually learned this a couple months ago. I was traveling.
Oh, you learned that the hard way, huh?
Oh, I learned it the hard way. our family and I, we were traveling in the summer, spending some time with the grandparents. We were away for a month, and I hit my data cap. I didn't know I had a data cap. And so I'm on the phone with like customer support from my data provider, and they said, "Yeah, you hit the data cap." And I was like, "Nope, I was not home for the entire month." Anyway, after a lot of investigation, I'm testing at all times. So I had like something like 20 cameras. So part of that is, serves me right. But yeah, it was an interesting thing. But yeah, so 2K, we picked that very intentionally. But there's a bunch of other goodness in here. We've updated the field of view for all of the cameras. So our outdoor camera goes up to, over 150 degrees field of view. So it's taller and wider. Our doorbells are even more dramatic. So doorbells have a unique problem, right? Like when you've got a doorbell, you kind of want to see top to bottom, right? You'd be able to see the person's head and their feet, but you also want to see left or right. Did somebody leave a package on your doorway on the bottom? So we did two things on the doorbell. We both upgraded the field of view to 166 degrees, which is pretty dramatic. And we changed the aspect ratio to 1:1.
Yeah, I was thinking like 1:1 means it's not like, landscape or portrait. It's sort of, just as wide as it is high, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So between 2K and, the increased field of view, changed the aspect ratio, we also sort of did some things with the sensor choice to let in more light. So this generation of cameras have like 120% more light than the previous generation. So it's much better for low light performance. So effectively what that means is you can stay in full color mode earlier in the morning at dawn and later in the night at dusk before it's over into HD night vision. So we think that, that's really powerful. All of that together, by the way, those pieces come together and they result in the best image quality that we've shipped to date on a generation of our cameras. And so we're really excited about that. All three cameras individually were ranked #1 by DxOMark for image quality in outdoor cameras, indoor cameras, and doorbells. So we're proud of that. But listen, the quality is going to be something that people tell us about, so they're going to buy it and tell us that they love it or not. And so we're excited for them to play around with it.
And do you feel this is the answer to the question some people asked maybe earlier in the year, like, does Nest still care about hardware?
Oh, we absolutely do. This is probably one of our biggest portfolio launches in over 5 years, right? If you think about it, between the new intelligence, the all new app, the new subscription service, and 4 new first party devices, we haven't talked about even the partner devices that we're also rolling out. If you take all of that together, yeah, it's certainly one of the biggest moments that we've had in the last 5-6 years.
Tell me what that means, partner devices, and what is launching on that side now?
Yeah, when you asked me about our devices, I mentioned our strategy has certainly evolved, right? We're building in categories that make a lot of sense. We're building these flagship devices, and we're complementing that with partner devices. So one of the things we did recently was we expanded, or rather we're announcing as part of this, that we're expanding our Google Home platform with a camera program. And so I mentioned earlier, we really didn't want to constrain Gemini for Home to any one device and brand and price point. Obviously, we love our flagship Nest devices, but we want users to have more choice. And so we're announcing that Walmart is the first partner in our new platform camera program. And they're going to be rolling out 2 new devices. So they're rolling out a new indoor camera and a new doorbell as well. And what's really exciting about that is, if as a user, you get to set these devices up right in the Home app, you get to have the full experience that we talked about earlier, right? All of the improvements that we've made in the Home app for the camera experience. They're 1080p. They're great devices, and perhaps most importantly, incredible value. The indoor camera, starts at just 22 or so bucks. They're available, here in the U.S. The doorbell starts at, in the 40s. So incredible value. And so suddenly now you have this range of options, right? So if you as a user want to get access to Gemini for Home, or you have the Home app and you love it, and you have a Google Home Premium subscription, have all these different choices at different price points. And so that's what's exciting, right? And this is sort of the first thing that we're doing with cameras. We're going to expand that to a whole bunch of other partners, but you can see us doing that in other categories as well.
Anish, tell me how you feel now closer to the end of 2025 compared to the beginning of it, because this sounds like for the team you're on, maybe one of the most transformational changes in a year's time.
I think of this as a big milestone on a journey that we are on. So I'm hesitant to sort of frame this as sort of the finish line by any means. This for us is, we've been on this journey for, over a decade now. Internally, by the way, we've called this Home 2.0. So the way that I think about this is it's a milestone. Another way that I framed it to our teams internally is that we're about to start the first chapter of the second book, right? If the last decade was the sort of first book of our saga, then this moment in time is just the first chapter of that next book. And I say that because Gemini has so much potential for what it can do in the home. And when we start to roll out, in early access in October, we're just getting started. And it's really tangible. There's a lot of awesomeness that's starting on day one in October. But I'm so excited about all the sort of future potential.
Well, Anish, sounds like we need to get you back for the new chapters in that second book. Sounds like there's a lot coming up next year. So hopefully we'll see you then again. Thank you so much for joining today.
Oh, of course. Yeah. 25 has been an awesome year, but 26 is going to be an even more exciting one. So yeah, I'm happy to come back anytime. Thanks for having me on the pod, Rachid. Appreciate it.
Cheers. See you then.
Thank you for listening to the Made by Google podcast. Don't miss out on new episodes. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts to be the first to listen.